Hi, friends. As promised, I'm back with another interview. This time, I'm going to be speaking with Lenore Zann. As you can see here, if you're watching or listening, Lenore Zann, so lovely to have you.
So nice to be here with you again.
So we're in the virtual space because this is how we do it this time. So Lenore, you have had an splendid career in the arts here in Canada and elsewhere, and you also have a political life too that maybe we can talk about. Uh,
Sure.
but a lot of us grew up with you hearing your voice as an iconic character in the X-Men animated series. But before we talk about Rogue and your memoir, let's tell folks a little bit about you. And you seem to have such a rich life in the arts, so maybe we can share a
Mm.
bit about that with.
Sure, sure. Yeah.
So let's start. From what I understand, being privy to the book that we're going to talk about, which is your memoir, A Rogue's Tale, your family was very, very pivotal in your upbringing in terms of understanding the arts, literature, but you yourself had this artistic flair. You know, where did you find it? How did it come out?
Well, I mean, that's partly what the book is about why I like going on a quest to try and find out who I am and why I am the way I am. And as a young woman in my 20s, I really didn't understand where this artistic passion came from. And I talk about that in the book. I mean, I talk about my grandmother on my mom's side
Mhm.
being a pianist and a singer. And, so obviously I get some of that from her. But I really felt that on my dad's side, there had to be something as well. So that's why I went on this quest to Croatia, to the old country where our ancestors came from,
Right.
with the name of Zan. It used to be many generations ago, Zaninovic.
Mhm.
And I wanted to know who they were and why they ended up leaving there and going to Australia. And through doing that and going on this quest, I was able to uncover a lot more about my history and the ancestors that came before me. And the fact that, yeah, it didn't just come out of thin air. I have arts and acting and singing on both sides of the family, as
Mhm.
well as some adventurers and explorers and even a few rogues. The book's called A Rogue's Tale,
Right.
partly because it's a play on words because of my character Rogue, and partly because I have always have felt like I'm a bit of a rogue, and I come from a long line of rogues who some of them were like highway robbers who got sent as convicts to Australia at the age of 19. I have two highway robbers on both sides of my family. And they were both young 19-year-old men who were out for adventure and out for themselves, obviously. And they ended up being sent off to Australia. But I find all of those kinds of things so fascinating. And
Mhm.
I think so many people have interesting heritage that they haven't even really looked into. And if you actually start to look into it, you can really start to see a pattern and to see a little bit more about who you are and why you are the way you are.
Absolutely. And I think that's also what I'm getting from those first few chapters in your book in terms of, growing up with your being close to your grandparents and having access to storytelling from our grandparents is so
Yes.
vital. And she also had a friend that you named in the book, Mrs.
Mrs. Ping.
Yes, Mrs.
Mrs. Ping.
And
Yes.
so can you tell me a little bit about what it was like to write those early chapters and kind of going back in time and sort of
Sure.
reliving those moments?
Yes. Well, I've always been somebody who I hate bullies and I hate people who are racist or bigoted and mean to other people. And when I went into politics, I mean, that played a large role in what I did in politics and why I tried to help get others' voices amplified and to try and create bills that would help the Indigenous communities across Canada, and also the Black communities across Canada.
Mhm.
And if you read my book, you see that when I was a little girl, my mother, my mother was into the arts, but she was a teacher, and so she had me enrolled in ballet classes at an early age in the city, in the big city of Sydney. But her mother, my grandmother, Mummy Marshall, I called her, lived out in the country, in the bush of Australia. And her best friend was a lady named Mrs. Ping, who was an Indigenous Aboriginal lady who had a house full of kids, about 10 children, that she was fostering from different women in the Indigenous community. And they were my first friends.
Mhm.
And we used to run back and forth between my grandmother's house and Mrs. Ping's house. And they would tell us stories about witches and fairies and bush creatures and creation stories that were part of their culture. And I feel blessed that I had that as an early upbringing because it really made me feel part of the earth, of Mother Earth,
Right.
and it created in me a desire to help protect Mother Earth and all her creatures, and to protect her from, pollution and people who would want to try and take advantage of Mother Earth and destroy her just for money. um so and also I talked in the book about how at one point I noticed that people that were driving by would drive by and they would throw garbage in Mrs. Ping's yard.
Mhm.
And I said to my grandmother, why are they doing that? Why would they do that to Mrs. Ping? And she said, well, there are people in this world who have these reptilian brains, she said, who, they haven't evolved from like the reptiles. She said they have this reptilian kind of brain, and they believe that some people are less important than them because of the color of their skin. And I never could understand that. And I said, but we're all the same. Like, what does it matter? But she taught me about racism, that racism is something that exists. And it made me so angry. I really wanted to do something about that. And so years later, when Dr. Ingrid Waldron came to me and said, Lenore, I really want to talk to you about this issue of environmental racism that is going on in Nova Scotia and across Canada. And I
Mhm.
said, okay, please explain this to me. And she said, well, it's the disproportionate number of toxic dumps, waste sites, landfills, and corporate polluters placed on or beside racialized communities, which then leads to them having worse outcomes and having like more cancers, more reproductive issues, more breathing issues, respiratory problems. And she said, but it's happening. And all of a sudden it just clicked. And I went, oh my God,
Mhm.
I get it. Like, let's do something. And so I feel blessed that I was able to have that childhood and
Mhm.
have that experience as a young person, which sort of set me in motion for the rest of my life.
Mhm. In a way, right? And
Mm,
and I think it was also really great to see through the book that you had your grandma for a while, your mommy Marshall for a while, and
yeah,
able to take some pivotal trips with her as well. But I will
exactly.
let people read the book because
Yes.
that is the whole point of us.
Yes, exactly.
But
Exactly.
I think if a part of me wishes I had been older then so that I would have seen you on stage and kind of
Uh,
because it sounds like such an interesting journey, but also having to make a way for yourself as a very young actor. You started in your teens.
mm,
And I'm guessing that this part of your journey writing this memoir is also, I don't know, maybe I'm interpreting things, but a
hmm
way to kind of give back to your younger self. Can you
hmm
talk a little bit about what that was like in terms of writing the memoir and thinking of your younger self and what you had to live through?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's interesting because, yes, it is kind of like my adult self, my adult mothering self, saying to my younger self, who was kind of lost sometimes and didn't have anybody I could really tell about some of the terrible things that happened. Um, it is. pretty healing, and writing it and admitting it and sharing it with others is
Mhm.
definitely been a very cathartic experience.
Mhm.
But I also am thinking of all the other young people who are out there who are hopefully going to read the book, who might be suffering from some of the stuff that I suffered from themselves.
Mhm.
Whether it be misogyny or sexual harassment in the workplace, or sexual assault, and also numbing yourself with compulsive actions
Mhm.
or substances. And I find many people have something that they are trying to stuff down that they don't want to remember. They're either running from it, or it's too painful. And so what happens is, if we don't deal with it, we try to self-medicate
Right.
with unhealthy things. So it's my hope that if people read this book and they're feeling something like that or experiencing something like that, it might give them some inspiration to be able to get the help that they need and not to feel any shame about it, because it's the shame that will kill you. And it
Mhm.
was the shame that kept me quiet for so many years. And then I self medicated with alcohol and drugs.
And that's so profound, right? The idea that sometimes even as younger women too, depending on how we were raised or what we believe,
Yeah,
we kind of shut down as well in terms of, addressing some of these big topics and sometimes dangerous topics.
exactly. Like even and again, we don't want to give everything away about the book, but I
Yes.
think, there's a part there where I was sexually assaulted, and my first initial response was, it didn't happen to me. Like, that was just my body. If
Mhm.
I just think, oh, it's just my body, it's not really me, then, I can pretend it never happened. I can sweep it under the rug.
Mhm.
But as I say in the book, after a while, when you have traumatic experiences and you keep sweeping them under the rug, eventually, when you try to sweep one more thing under the rug and you lift up the rug, there's suddenly all these ugly, googly eyes all staring out at you, and there's no more room under there for anything more. And that's when you get overwhelmed. And that's when you can either, you hit bottom or become suicidal or whatever. And so that's why I say it's really good to be able to deal with the issues as they come up.
And finding your safe people. I think along the way
Yeah.
you also had some folks that kind of help you through, which is, I think what I also see in the book is something that I see a lot in all industries, not just the arts,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
idea of sometimes the arts industry in Canada can be very small, and we come to know people because someone knows somebody,
Hmm.
all of that, and finding community and having that support
Yeah.
is still pretty key. And I find that that's something that is very important, even at the time that you were kind of growing up as an actor.
Yes. Yeah. Although it was hard to find people that I could talk to, because I
Mhm.
started so young. A lot of them were older than me.
Right.
Right. And so, yeah, it was hard. But now that I'm older and I'm like meeting younger people, like for instance in X-Men, we have a lot of younger cast members as
Yeah.
well as the originals, and I feel very motherly towards them,
Mhm.
and I wanted to make sure that to open up my arms and welcome them in so that they feel part of the team, and that they don't have to feel like scared that, oh my God, we're trying to be as good as them, and we watched them when we were kids and they're icons, and I'm like, look, we're just people,
Right.
and you're part of the team now. So
So true.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
but that whole idea of found family is really important too, as you mentioned, because so many people are feeling lonely these days. And I think that's why a lot of people can relate to Rogue, for instance.
Mhm.
She can't touch anybody. She can't let her guard down and let herself fall in love because she's afraid she might kill the person she loves. So
Right.
she tends to keep everything to herself, and she tends to sort of push on through. But in X-Men 97, she hits the wall. I mean, she hits a wall, And so, and also when you've been, you've got your own family who maybe doesn't accept you for whatever, maybe people who are LGBTQ, many of my friends feel like they are just estranged from their families.
Mm-hmm.
And so they've had to create their own families and their own community. And that found community and that found family is very important.
Absolutely. And I think it's to your point of why so many in the book that you made up a few times in terms of how the popularity of the X-Men specifically, whether it's the original series and now with this new one, the latest version,
Mhm.
is so continues to grow
Yeah,
because of the idea that we're all mutants in some way, right?
right.
We all have our thing.
Yes, exactly.
And it could be a superpower or not, depending on who views it and how they view it.
Yeah, right.
So, I'm gonna let folks read the book and they can read more about that. But I kind of want to do talk about your fandom because you talk about being, from the original series and this new one, and
Mhm.
your fandom has been very, very active and supportive. And I know that you give a lot back. What's it like, kind of growing up with the series and kind of growing up with some of us?
Wow. I mean, it's been mind blowing, really, to meet the fans who were little, they were kids when our show first came out.
Hmm.
And they tell me their stories of how they used to just get up early and Saturday morning with their little bowl of cereal, and they couldn't wait for X-Men to come on. And other kids that they ran home from school to watch it. And many people share with me that they were either, bullied, or they had abuse of some sort, or they felt different and they just didn't feel like they quite fit in. And our show was like a safe place for them. And they saw the storylines, and even at that young age they realized, oh, these people are being put upon, and people are being mean to them, and yet they're saying, well, it's okay to be different. It's
Hmm.
okay to be different. We don't all have to be cookie cutter little, white Protestant, Anglo-Saxon little robots, right? We're all different. And isn't that gorgeous? And so it's wonderful to meet them now and hear their stories, and to be able to look them in the eyes, and they get teary eyed. And I tell them, you are beautiful and you are worthy just as you are, just as you are. You got to learn how to embrace yourself, warts and all, like Roke does when she goes to Muir Island to
Mm.
try in the cure to get rid of her superpowers because she wants to be quote unquote normal
Yeah.
like everybody else. But then she realizes it's her superpowers that, even though they bring her pain, they are what makes her who she is.
Right.
And in the end of it, she says, I reckon I am my powers and the good they can do. And I reckon I can live with that. There
Hmm.
ain't no cure for who you are.
Isn't that
I just
interesting?
love
That's
that.
also a chapter in your book, which I
Mhm,
really appreciate as well.
mhm,
And there's
mhm,
there's a great quote about Rogue in that too. So um
mhm,
there's a lot of depth in I find that that's the great thing about comics and cartoon series, animated series, in that
mhm.
there's a lot of depth and it's a lot of room to explore a lot of this stuff about life and growing
Yeah,
in a way that is entertaining and accessible.
exactly. And the beauty of the writing of X-Men, both
Hmm.
iterations of it, is that they never talk down to the audience.
Right.
We don't talk down. We don't treat kids like, oh, you're just a kid, you wouldn't know. We talk about it on a level, and the kids get it. And then as you age up and then you watch it again, you get it even more, and you get even more levels,
Hmm.
right? More layers,
The next layer.
right? And even like 6 and 7 year olds who are watching it now with their parents tell me it's so exciting. And I'm like, isn't it scary? And they're like, no, it's really exciting. This one little girl, she said, oh, I love Rogue. Rogue's my favorite character, and this is the best show I've ever seen. And I'm thinking, how many shows has she ever seen? She's only six. And then she goes, I said, well, she said, oh, and I watched it six or seven times, and I watched episode five six times. I'm like, you
Yeah.
did? And I look at her father, goes, yeah. And I said, well, do you have a chat about what it's all about? He said, oh, yes, we talk about death and that's part of life. And
Um,
I said, oh my goodness. I said, and did it make you sad? She said, oh, yes, I cried. She said, but I feel really sorry for Rogue
mm.
because she lost both of her boyfriends.
You gotta love kids, right? Because it's the candor and just no holds bar.
I know, I know. I was like, oh my God.
It
From the
sounds like
mouths of babes.
always. I was gonna say my niece, one of my nieces is like that too. She'll watch them
Really?
over and over again.
Yeah.
I don't know if she's at the X-Men level yet. She's only 5, so
Uh-huh.
but I think we'll get her started very soon.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So I was gonna ask you, you're just to bring it back into in terms of the book, all of this richness is in the book and
Hmm.
go through some ups and downs. I thought I was gonna have myself a Cuba Libre while I was talking to you because I love Cuba. I'm Latin American,
Right.
so like the Cuba side was
Yes,
very
yes.
great story. And obviously, your life is in waves. And I think
Yeah,
what I appreciate in the book is how you're really vulnerable even with in the sharing of your life with us. Just the way we
thank you.
see Rogue evolving in the series. Like
Yeah.
you said, this is you in a sense, right?
Yes, exactly.
No.
It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder if it will when people read the book, I wonder if when the second season comes out, will they have even more feelings about Rogue now that they've actually read my origin story, you know?
We'll have to wait and see, but people need to really sign up and watch the second season of
Yes,
the series
yes, indeed.
to find out. What's it been like to tour with the book, Lenore? I know you've done a few stops and you're doing more
Yeah.
in Canada.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been amazing, really. The first one I did it in Nova Scotia to start with because of course my family's there and that's my home.
Yes.
And that was lovely in Truro, where a lot of people that knew me came. I was a little bit nervous about how they would feel about it, but I've been hearing from all of them that they loved the book and they're just really proud of me, which is really nice. And then LA was very interesting because I had no idea whether anybody would even come. We did it at the Barnes and Noble store, which is a big store, and it's their flagship store at what's called the Grove. And
Right.
it was packed. We had oh my God, there was no room. It was so many people there, and they just all were so excited. Some who had already read the book and they brought the book, they wanted me to sign it, and others who were buying the book then. And now Toronto is my next one. I'm doing that on Friday
Mhm.
at the Indigo store at Yonge and Eglinton. And then I'm on Sunday I'm going to Vancouver to do one there at Robson Street Indigo store.
Mhm.
And then at the end of the month I'm doing one in Miami.
Nice.
So that's going to be interesting too. But I've been taking copies of the book around with me to the different Comic Cons and all around the world. And Australia was great. I had a ton of people lined up for it there. So it's really kind of just beginning in a way.
Yes, yes, for sure. And I guess you were just mentioning that there's gonna be maybe an audio.
Yes, that's right. So, yeah, that's right. So I'm in Toronto right now because I was asked if I could do the audiobook version. And a lot of people have been asking about that along the way. Like, are you going to do an audio version? I'm like, yeah, but I don't know when. Someone's got to produce it. But so
Yeah.
ECW Press is producing it. And I don't know when it's going to be out. It won't be too long, but I've spent the last 4 days recording for, I think it's like 7 hours a day. And we just finished, like, just before I came here.
Yeah,
We
no,
just
I
we just
appreciate you
finished.
speaking with us. I know those are long days from what I hear. I mean,
Yeah.
it's work in itself, right? It's another way of
Yes.
being as well. So,
And it was interesting being able to read it out loud myself,
hmm
and go through it all again too, and go through all of the different stuff. But it was, yeah, it felt good. It felt right.
hmm
The timing of it is very organic. I waited to write this book till I had time,
Sure.
and I made time in between all my different recordings of X-Men and the Comic Cons,
Yes,
writing on planes, which seems to be a great spot for me to do the writing. There's no distractions.
that's right. Amazing. Um, I'm so much looking forward to finishing the book because I have a couple,
Good.
I think I have about 20 pages left, so we'll see.
Oh, cool. Very cool.
We'll
And
see. I
where
mean, I
where
kind of know where it's going, but
right.
we're
And
here.
where are you physically? Where
I'm
do you
actually
live?
in Toronto as
Oh, you're
well.
in Toronto. Okay.
But again, because I also have a day job and life is sometimes
Yeah.
time just passes us. I think this is the best way to connect, and I'm
Yeah.
happy that you're here doing the
Thank you.
audiobook and the readings, and I'm hoping that more people are gonna read the book if they haven't already.
Yeah.
So
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And yes. Yes.
whenever you see or hear this,
Yes.
new
Exactly.
opportunities across Canada. But I'll be sure to put the website where folks can find more details on the book. I already
Excellent.
follow you on the socials, so I'll tag as much as I can.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank
Thank
you so
you.
much.
Appreciate your time.
I really appreciate you doing this, Heidi. Thank you.